There's only two known ways to change a paradigm. Just two. Go ask any psychologist, any psychiatrist. The paradigm is like a program in our mind that controls our behavior. Doesn't matter how much we know, our behavior is controlled by the paradigm. Now, the first way is the constant spaced repetition of ideas that are essentially the opposite of the paradigm. That's what our paradigm shift seminar is all about. And that's what I'm inviting you to. Now, the other way, it doesn't happen very often. That's the personal experience of an emotional impact. I'll give you an example. 9/11 in New York, the buildings coming down, that was an emotional impact. Not for me, probably not for you. It was a terrible thing that everybody would agree was an absolute catastrophe. It was a paradigm shift for the people that were involved in that area. When that happened, their lives changed. The family of people that were killed there, paradigm shift. That doesn't happen often. You can count on the other one, a constant spaced repetition. I'm going to show you why. Now look at this for a moment. Why repetition is necessary when changing paradigms. Now you've probably attended a paradigm shift seminar. Go back and attend another one, and another one, and another one. I started to read this book 57 years ago. I'm still reading it. I have a book here open on my desk. Get this over here. Let me grab it. Let's change that here. I have it open. I've been reading these 2 pages for 3 months because I know that's how paradigms change. It's repetition that actually changes it. Now here's why. I want you to look at this for a moment. Let the white line that I'm going to put on here represent the sound of my voice. The red line represents you listening to the sound of my voice. The white line represents my voice. Now think. So you go along and you're listening. Now there's a difference between listening and hearing. You can hear me and not listen to me. Kids are like that with their parents. Most people are like that with their spouse. They hear them, but they're not listening to them. And so they're in trouble. That's the way it works. So think what I'm saying again. The white line represents the sound of me talking. The red line represents you listening to me talking. Now, I'll go along and I'll be explaining something, an idea will hit. Where do you go? You go off on a thought trip. You see, those lines are what we call a thought frequency. And you'll be up here and you'll be thinking about that idea that hit your mind. All the while, the white line's still going. I'm still talking, but you don't hear it. You do hear it. You don't listen to it. And then you come back down and you start listening again. And you go along and bang, another idea hits and away you go on another thought trip. So you see, that is why we can listen to the same thing over and over. And you say, I never heard that on there before. I never heard that before. You could be reading it in a book and say, I don't ever remember seeing that in the book. That is because you would be reading, your eyes are going, but your mind is off somewhere else. Now think of this. If you see those red dots and they represent at the point in the seminar when you took an idea and you started to think about it. Let's suppose you come back to it again. Let's tear all this down for a moment and we'll just leave the dots on there. Okay? Now, what do you suppose the odds are of you stopping on that idea the next time you hear the same thing? It isn't going to happen. You're going to come down there. You see, the odds of you stopping at the same point, you're not going to do it. So you're only getting emotionally involved in the idea once, and then you get another idea at another place. Through repetition, everything in your life starts to change. Now, I never knew that, but I started to read this book, and then I started to listen to a recording of Earl Nightingale's battle way back in 1961. I was so fascinated with what Earl was talking about, I couldn't stop listening to it. 10 years later, I was living in England. I was earning over $1 million a year. I had business in 7 different cities in Canada, the US, and England. I was earning all kinds of money. And I started to ask myself, how did this happen? And I could not figure it out. I'd been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was earning a lot of money. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't get a good job. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. So then I started to think, well, a lot of the stuff I believe isn't even true. And then I started to think, how the heck did I change? And so I started to study. It took me about 9.5 years. And when I figured it out, all I wanted to do was teach it. And I reasoned it was because of the repetition. I kept listening to this material. I was starting with records, and then we get into cassettes, and on it goes, and then we're online. But it's the repetition of hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's what happens. I hope you enjoyed this video. We put a lot of good information up here, and it causes everything in your life to get better. If you'd like us to notify you every time we put a new video up, hit subscribe and then turn on notifications. Check out all our videos, and we will notify you when we put a new one up.